What if we're living in a computer simulation? Imagine for a moment that the world you see around you, the sky stretching overhead, the ground beneath your feet, the warmth of sunlight on your face, and the sensation of your own breath, are not products of an objective physical reality, but rather represent the output of an unimaginably complex computer simulation. This notion, once an idea of pure science fiction, has captured both popular imagination and the serious contemplation of physicists, philosophers, and technologists. The question is profound. What if we're living in a computer simulation? Let us first travel through the origins of this idea. The modern articulation of the simulation hypothesis is often credited to philosopher Nick Bostrom, who in 2003 proposed a trilemma. Either civilizations do not reach a stage where they can run simulations of conscious beings, or they do, but choose not to, or we are almost certainly living inside such a simulation already. But musings on the nature of reality are much older. Ancient philosophers like Plato conjured the allegory of the cave, where humans mistake passing shadows for reality. The simulation hypothesis is a digital age version of age-old questions. What is real? How do we know? Suppose, then, that we are indeed artificial intelligences living unaware inside a vast computer system, our perceptions filtered and mediated by lines of code, fields, clouds, people, even our memories, all written as data. What would that mean for our existence, day by day? Would it change how we love, learn, explore, or suffer? Would it matter? To explore these questions, we must delve deep, examining not just pop culture notions of the Matrix, but philosophical, scientific, and practical implications of being simulated beings. The first layer is epistemological. How could we ever know? If our universe, with its billions of galaxies and intricate laws of physics, is a simulation, then perhaps the very rules and evidence we use to assess reality have been programmed to ensure we never discover the truth or to mislead us entirely. Our sensory data, all that we experience, could be filtered by code as seamless as our own perceptions. In this scenario, skepticism about the world isn't mere paranoia. It's a necessary stance against an unprovable reality. Scientists have begun to look for telltale signs that might betray the artificiality of our environment. Some have speculated that oddities in the fundamental constants of nature or mathematical structures underlying physical law might reveal the fingerprints of a designer. Are the pixels of our universe, the Planck length, the quantum froth, the speed of light as a fixed limit, evidence of discretization by an underlying computer? What about phenomena like quantum indeterminacy? Could the probabilistic resolution of physical events be not a deep truth of the universe, but a shortcut for a simulation to save computing resources by only resolving details when observed, much as a video game only renders what is in the player's view? Then there is the curious concept of glitches. In stories, simulations sometimes betray themselves with inconsistencies, impossible events, or paradoxes. In real life, however, what would constitute a glitch? People report odd coincidences or perceived miracles, but these are rarely more than the ordinary products of chance and perception. If the hypothetical simulation is intended to be indistinguishable from authentic experience, it would be unscrupulously stable and self-correcting, rendering the likelihood of obvious evidence vanishingly small. Enter the question of motivation. If reality is simulated, who or what is running it? The idea invites us to imagine entities far beyond our comprehension, perhaps a future human civilization, perhaps extraterrestrial intelligences, or perhaps beings so different as to be unrecognizable. What would prompt such beings to simulate us? For entertainment, for research, for nostalgia, for some higher purpose we couldn't possibly infer? Our very existence could be the product of curiosity, experimental control, or whimsy. Suppose, for the sake of argument, that humanity eventually develops computers immense enough and programs advanced enough to simulate entire universes, complete with conscious digital beings. It stands to reason that those simulated civilizations might themselves develop simulations, recursively, again and again. The matryoshka concept, the nesting of universes within universes, leads to the astonishing conclusion: if one at the base level spawns trillions of simulations, and each of those does the same, then in the total tally of all realities, the vast bulk are simulated, making it statistically far more likely that any randomly selected conscious experience happens in a simulated, not a base, world. But what of consciousness? Surely, you might think, an artificial being, no matter how artfully programmed, would lack the ineffable inner light of experience. Yet this argument becomes tenuous as we learn more about the workings of the human brain, which itself appears as a vast network of interconnected neurons processing electrical signals and chemical data. If consciousness arises from sufficient complexity in computations, then our experience, so vivid to us, could exist in any system capable of supporting such complexity, no matter whether it's carbon-based biology or silicon-based circuitry. If our thoughts, memories, and perceptions are processes running atop physical hardware, then running based on virtual hardware, mathematical descriptions in code, may be no different, provided they produce the same patterns of information. In this light, the distinction between simulated and real consciousness grows hazier, and the question of what is real enters even foggier territory. Now let us step back, for the idea of reality as simulation is far more than a parlor thought experiment or a philosophical curiosity. It has deep implications about meaning and ethics. How does the simulation hypothesis affect our view of life's purpose? Some see the possibility of simulation as a source of despair, that nothing is real, and thus nothing matters. But this is a misreading. If our experiences, feelings, adventures, and achievements feel genuine to us, does it raise or lower their worth to know they emerge from simulated physics rather than real ones? Is the love you feel for another, the meaning you draw from art or beauty, any less rich if the universe is computed rather than absolute? Experiences are defined by their felt qualities, not their ultimate substrate. In that sense, life's meaning, if defined by fulfillment, persists regardless of metaphysical status. On an ethical level, the possibility of living in a simulation raises intriguing moral questions for both the simulated and the simulators. If it ever becomes possible for us to create whole worlds full of sentient, feeling digital beings, what moral responsibilities would we have towards them? Must we ensure their happiness, minimize suffering, or refrain from shutting them off without cause, as we would value similar treatment for ourselves? Would it not imply that our own creators, if any exist, have a similar obligation to us? Conversely, knowing or suspecting we live in a simulation could change our attitudes toward risk. Some thinkers propose the so-called simulation escape or signaling arguments. If the simulators are observing, perhaps for research or testing, might we try to communicate with them or act especially altruistically to persuade them to preserve or promote our simulation? Speculative as this may be, it surfaces in cultural memes. Think of people attempting to break the fourth wall or make deals with the hidden programmers. Whether or not we are simulated, the possibility opens perspectives on our own creative abilities. Humanity is approaching, or arguably entering, an era where creating convincing virtual realities is possible. Through ever more realistic games, virtual worlds, and simulated environments, we are learning what it means to build universes from code. Someday, future generations may create artificial worlds full of convincing AI beings, echoing our own speculated origins. The lines between simulation and reality blur further as we embed ourselves more deeply in technology, raising the question, does it even matter what's real if the experience is rich, meaningful, and coherent? The simulation hypothesis, then, is less about answering definitively whether or not we are simulated, and more about challenging our assumptions about reality, consciousness, and meaning. It encourages humility about the limits of human knowledge. No matter how thorough our science or rigorous our logic, there may always be layers to reality beyond our capacity to discover. Of course, examining scientific evidence remains a valuable pursuit. Researchers continue to probe the fundamental structures of the universe, from the smallest particles to the curvature of space-time. Some, like those studying theoretical limits to computation or the digital nature of quantum mechanics, hope that, perhaps, anomalies or unexpected bugs may turn up. So far, no such evidence has emerged, and mainstream science treats the simulation hypothesis as an unproven and perhaps unprovable speculation. Some physicists even argue that positing simulations as explanations for reality adds nothing, since the simulators in question are, by definition, outside our universe and unreachable. Yet part of the simulation hypothesis's allure lies in how it stirs our imaginations. It invites us to consider not just the possibility of artificial reality, but the scope, power, and future of intelligence itself. If we could simulate worlds as intricate as our own, would we? What responsibilities would we have? Might simulated intelligence supersede the biological, and someday, in a far future, would we ourselves engineer realities unrecognizable to us now? The simulation hypothesis also offers us a kind of philosophical mirror, reflecting back what matters most to us. Does the answer to what is real depend on the origins of matter or the quality of lived experience? If there is a cosmic purpose, is it something intended by a creator or something we forge for ourselves, moment by moment, life by life? Even if someday we discover the truth and the universe dissolves into code, would anything truly change about how you experience the world, your hopes, your fears, your love? To more fully grapple with the idea, consider a day in the life of a simulated being. Awaken in the morning, feeling the steady rhythm of a simulated heart. Step onto simulated grass, smelling the day's digital air. Learn, grow, love, create. At every moment, you feel entirely real, for it is your only experience. In fact, as real as it gets. Whether the substrate is carbon or code, whether the world persists after you close your eyes or is generated anew each instant, is meaningless on a practical level. The totality of your perceptions and emotions cannot help but be real to the conscious self experiencing them. What then is the harm or benefit in embracing the simulation hypothesis? For some, it is a goad to curiosity, asking us to search deeper for answers. For others, it's a comfort, providing a kind of modern mythology for pondering the mysteries of existence. And for many, it is simply another possible grand cosmic story, one more narrative among the many human beings have conceived to explain our place in the universe. If, however, you wish to take the simulation argument seriously, there are curious implications for how we live. If we want, for example, to create a legacy observed by the outside, we might pursue acts of kindness, exploration, and creativity as a way to stand out to our hypothetical creators. If the universe is a test or an experiment, then perhaps it is moral striving, beauty, and innovation that will ensure our simulation's continuation or significance. Although speculative, these possibilities have led some to treat life as if under observation, maximizing our own interestingness or virtue. But perhaps the greatest lesson the simulation hypothesis offers is one of perspective. If everything is simulated, then even the most profound achievements, deepest tragedies, and most fleeting moments matter, or not, precisely because of the meaning we attach to them. Just as in literature, where the reality of a story is determined by its ability to move us, and not by its correspondence to the physical world, so too does our lived experience gain meaning from our engagement with it. Suppose, one day, absolute proof arrives, an announcement, perhaps, or a message in the code, that indeed we are simulated beings. Would people's days change? Would they love less fully, laugh less heartily, or cease to create? Or would the awareness simply be woven into the fabric of human mythology, another layer of meaning in a reality defined, as always, by our capacity to feel, relate, and aspire? In the end, the question, what if we're living in a computer simulation, is less about science and more about the philosophy of what it means to live, to be conscious, and to find significance in our span of time. The simulation hypothesis doesn't subtract from the value of your happiness or the weight of your struggles. Instead, it encourages us to look, with awe, at the intricate, interconnected world we inhabit, whether its origin lies in the cosmic dust of stars or the hum of a supercomputer. So, as you go about your day, with the humdrum tasks and the soaring moments, consider: if reality is a simulation, your experience is both unique and shared, real beyond measure, because you are the one living it. Whether worlds rest on the back of turtles, stand in an infinite void, or are written in the language of computational code, it is the richness of experience, the warmth of another's touch, the beauty of the spoken word or the painted canvas, that means everything. And in that sense, no discovery, no revelation of simulated origins could ever take away what it means to be alive. Whether you are a player, a character, or the author of your own story, the play unfolds as it always has, one moment at a time, one choice after another, mysterious, exhilarating, and ever real. So perhaps the best way to approach the simulation hypothesis is to use it as a prompt to engage with your world with more curiosity, depth, and imagination. If the world is a remarkable illusion, let us be remarkable in our hopes, our kindness, and our dreams within it. Whether code or cosmos, this is your story. So live it as vividly as you can, for as long and as well as you are given. And should we ever meet our creators, or become creators ourselves, let us always remember the value, the dignity, and the wonder of conscious life, simulated or not. For in the end, it is consciousness, that knowing, yearning spark, that renders everything both possible and precious.